We're Timothy and Colleen Ingram, and you're watching SoulCare 360.
Welcome to the show. We are so thrilled to be back again. We've gotten that last episode, the first episode, we've sort of gotten it out of our system. And so now we're ready to just proceed with what we have to share with everyone.
Yep.
Great. So one of the things that we talked about on last week, just to do a quick recap, we talked about what soul care is. And we likened the soul to being a jar filled with soil. And we liken all of the experiences that a person would have in their lives to seeds being dropped into that soil. And whatever seeds that are dropped, cultivated, fed, watered, those are the fruits that will come. So whether the seeds of abandonment was dropped, whether the seeds of having poor self-esteem was dropped, whether the seeds of being abused emotionally, spiritually, physically, psychologically, all those things. So those are the products that will spring up out of the soul if we're not really careful about doing that introspection, looking into ourselves and finding out what's going on with us. So today we're going to be talking about safe spaces and safe places. Why do you think that is such an important component of soul care?
Because there's life that happens to us, and we have to, and not always the bad things or the good things rather, but when bad things happen, we have to be able to share and release those things, because a lot of times we hold on to things, or like we were talking about the soul in the jar. We bury things up thinking that will make it better or make it go away. You know, if we ignore it long enough, it'll go away. But it doesn't, because like we talked about the jar and the soul, it's going to spring up. It may take it a while because we keep covering and putting soul over it, but eventually what's down in there is going to catch up and it's going to come out. So we need a place to where we can safely acknowledge our mistakes in a safe place, because, there's a lot of judgment and a lot of things that would make us want to hide those things, keep those things a secret. Like we say, put things in the closet, hope nobody ever opens up.
Yeah.
But in a lot of cases, the door opens eventually. And all that stuff, and a lot of times stuff that we done forgot about, spring forward if we don't deal with it.
Yeah, and most often, there's two things I want to address. You said that we have to be able to have a place where we can, I think you were saying we have a place where we can let it go, our mistakes that we've made. And sometimes those seeds that are dropped, they're not mistakes that we've made as individuals. There are things that have been done to us. There are traumatic experiences that we, have gone through in life, and those seeds are buried deep within. And what I love about what you said is that they're going to come up and they're going to come out. That door is going to open in some way, in some manner. And my pastor normally says, at the most inopportune time, that fruit is going to spring forth, and that's not what we want to happen. And that's why it is so imperative that we create a safe space and a safe place for people to be able to say, this is what I'm feeling, without judgment. You and I were talking about the loss of a local mayor because of something that happened. We don't know the story, but what we do know is that evidently he didn't feel that there was a safe space or a safe place for him to be able to say, this is what it is, and then not to be judged.
And because of not having that place, he took matters in his own hands and probably felt like it's better to go around it than to just deal with it. not knowing what to do, because when things catches us off guard, we react, you know. But just imagine it. If he had had a safe place, or if he had had the opportunity to acknowledge or just admit, things could have been different or not as bad as he thought it would be. Because a lot of times when things happen, it's not the issue, it's how we react to it that's really the problem. And if we learn how to just admit or own it,
Yeah.
Then things will be a lot different. But a lot of times we try to brush it under, or brush it under the carpet, or hope again that we just forget about it. And then when it comes up, it's a shock, and we react or overreact to a situation instead of being able to safely acknowledge, admit, because we all make mistakes. We all make decisions that we think are good that aren't. It's like I talk a lot about the decisions we make in our 19s and 20s. Well, we 19, 20, 21 years old. All we got is 20 years of experience.
Yeah.
And we are forced to make decisions with the amount of experience we have. And sometimes we think it's the right thing to do. I know what I'm doing. Because nobody purposely makes a bad decision.
Right.
I wanted to just speak just a little bit about the differences in where we are in terms of understanding in our mature years, understanding that the things that happen, the things that we did in terms of making decisions for ourselves, that in order for us to have been able to get to a space in our lives and a place in our lives where we can openly talk about it, it was because healing had to take place first. Being made whole had to take place first. And so there had to be a created space for us to be able to say, this is what I'm feeling, this is how angry I was, this is how disappointed I was. There had to be a place, and I'm so thankful that we did have that cultivated place. And even for you, I think it was more difficult for you to trust and to release than it was for me, because I had began to do the work a long time ago as it related to identifying who's safe, who's not, what I can share and what I can't share. And so this is why with Soul Care, it is so important that when we are on our journey to becoming whole, that there is a created and a curated space for people to be able to say, I had an abortion, to be able to say, I had an affair, to be able to say, I am divorced 7 times. And I'll just put those things out there because a lot of times people think that's the worst of the worst. But it's not. What about them being able to say, I was molested by my father? Incest was throughout our family. What about, someone having the ability to say and not be judged, I cheated. I stole rings, I stole cars, I did all of these things. And see, as and I'm going to say this, as believers, we are the ones who are the most judgmental.
And see, and that's what I like about God. God does not necessarily look at what you did. He looks at why you did it. Whereas man looks at what you did and not why you did it. Because a lot of times if we take a second to see why somebody reacts the way they do or why they did, we'll understand where they're coming from, because it could be trauma, it could be things that they've experienced that caused them to react in the way they did. All we look at is what happened. They got married before, or they keep doing this, they have this habit, they're on drugs. That's a bad thing.
Right.
But we don't see why they got to be on drugs or why they acquired that habit that they can't let go of.
Right.
And it's very important that we do. Because a lot of things that we hold people accountable for, God has forgiven them. And that's one thing that I learned when I was working in the prison system.
I was hoping you would share that.
When I was working in the prison system, once I got promoted, I could look in the system and see exactly what an inmate did. I could see their history, their background, and what I was doing subconsciously was holding it against them. I would hold the guy that robbed the Pizza Hut delivery man less accountable than I would the guy that murdered some people. But what the Holy Ghost spoke to me was, what if I forgave them? What if they asked me for forgiveness? I forgave them, but now you holding them accountable. You holding it against them. So I had to let that stuff go. That's up to God.
Right.
And a lot of things that we try to hold people accountable for, if God has forgiven them, now we're wrong. Because we're passing judgment or we're taking the place of God. And God knows all of us. It's like a parent with children. You know, I have, we all have that child that, for instance, me and my sister, my mom, all she had to do was look at me and I would fall in line. Well, my sister, she had to lay hands on her, because Alicia wasn't that receptive. And God deals with all of us different.
Right.
So we can't look at what a person is. It's just like somebody that's smoking. A lot of times we'll look and say, well, you ought to be able to give that up. Some people, for some, it's more of a bad habit that they can't let go of.
But that's so, and to be very honest with you, that's such a minor thing. Those are things that we as humans have set up these guidelines and these you can and you can't do this kind of things. Those are things that we've set up. God is really not that concerned about all the things that we're micromanaging and we're concerned about. But I can tell you what God is concerned about. He's concerned that our soul prospers. That's one of the things that he's concerned about. And for us to be, for us to really walk in the fullness and the wholeness of who he has created us to be. And those barriers that keep us from walking into that is shame sometimes, it's a lot of regret, and it's the fear that if I say this, if I share this with someone, then I'm going to be harshly judged. Not only that, I may be sat down. If I go and speak to someone and I'm in a position, in a particular organization, I may be sat down and I won't have the opportunity to do what I know God has called me to do. So what that does, it creates a sort of a lane where we can, we're deceptive. Because what we do is we hide that stuff.
And in reality, we're taught that from an early age.
From a very early age, yes.
As children, when our children get to school, we say, don't do this, don't talk too much, be on your best behavior. And what we're teaching them is don't be yourself.
Don't be yourself.
When you get to school, put on the air and don't talk too much, don't do this, don't do that. When we take them to church, sit down, be quiet, don't ask a bunch of questions.
But don't forget,
and
don't tell them what's going on.
all of that.
In our
We
house.
teach them how to cover up and not be themselves. And when they get older, they're still putting on those airs and not being themselves. When you go to date, a lot of people say, well, you send your representative. Well, you teach folks to send their representative because what we have to do is compete. I can't be myself. I really like this person, but if I be myself, they might not like me. Especially when I know there's somebody else that likes this person too. So I've got to be my best self and put on my best show to gain this person's interest. And then later on, when real me comes out, but we put in that position to where we've got to, because that's what life has taught us. We do it in school, we do it in church. And what happens is like with me, and the reason why soul care is so important to me is because if you don't deal with those things early on, you'll drag them and you'll wait like I did till I'm in my 50s and I'm just getting this stuff sorted out to where if I'd have had that space in my 20s or as a teenager to talk, to express myself, to say what's on my mind, and feel like I could be open and honest and not have the rug taken out from under me, then I would have been able to communicate more in my 20s and 30s because I would have had to practice instead of being told, be quiet, don't talk until you're spoken to, don't question adults.
Right.
So now I'm in my 20s and 30s and I don't know how to express myself. I don't know how to talk.
Part of that is cultural for us, and it's not necessarily, that way in other cultures, but that is cultural for us. And I understand it's just so many depths of what we're talking about. It's just not one particular layer that we're pulling back right now. But the importance of soul care, and I'm glad you said that. That's why soul care is so important. It's because people look at a person and they can make a snap judgment about a person, and they don't understand why this person is antisocial, as they will label them, or why this person is angry, or why this person is combative in their responses, or why this person is paranoid and mistrustful. Well, what have we as a society and even a community done to help that person to understand that, when I go to school, I can be me. When I go, we have to put on so many masks throughout our lives, and just like you said, even from childhood. And some of that putting on the mask is to mask the pain that we're feeling, to mask the traumas that we have experienced. And so what we do is we bury our real selves in all of that stuff, and it's not until we start doing the work to be made whole. Our work is so important because what we do is we start from the very beginning. We start from that place of injury. And when we start from that place of injury and we start to extract those things, allowing people to extract those things and allowing people to say, this is how I feel, this is how it made me feel, this is why I'm angry, I don't really want to do church, I don't want to do, no organizations, I don't believe in sisterhoods and brotherhoods and all of that stuff because ABC 1, 2, 3 happened to me. I'm telling you, when a person is able to relax and be themselves, it is one of the most profound feelings. Tim, I can totally be Carlene with Tim. And Tim can totally be Tim with Carlene. And that's a rarity that most people don't experience. One of the most powerful things about soul care is that soul care is not denominational. It has nothing to do with whether you believe or you don't believe. Soul care is for the human. Like the last episode, we talked about the human experience. Everyone, not just church people, everyone experiences something. And so without, we're believers in there, and we're going to be reaching people who are not believers. Because what we want people to be able to see that we are who we say we are. And we want very much to help you to reach that space of knowing who you are. Aside from what happened to you, you need to be able, we want people to be able to dig into those places, allow healing to take place, and then let themselves emerge.
No matter what side of the tracks you fall on.
It doesn't matter.
No matter what your journey is, what you have or haven't done.
Right.
We all have a soul, and we all are important.
So I would say a key component to realizing soul care is first acknowledging that there is a need for healing to take place. And in that acknowledging that allows you to spread all the cards on the table and say, this is who I am, this is what it looks like. Now how are we going to get from all of this to the other side of being and feeling whole and renewed and healed?
That's good. That's good. One card at a time.
One card at a time.
One card.
Okay, I like that.
One card at a time.
One issue at a time.
Because when you lay all the cards on the table, it looks overwhelming.
Exactly.
But how do we handle it? One at a time. We deal with one thing at a time, and then eventually you realize the cards are starting to disappear.
Right.
And I'm beginning to get things in order because because I have things now in order, I can move on and forward. The burden, the load that I've been carrying is much lighter now, and I can move much further. It doesn't hurt to get up anymore.
Yeah.
Why? Because I've lightened the load.
That's good.
I've lightened the load and dealt with those issues.
So we've talked about a lot. Today's topic was safe spaces. And I will also add to that safe places.
Right.
Because until we get into a space where we can just unload ourselves, we're going to keep carrying that, and that's not what we want.
That's right.
One of the things we've not mentioned is how does a person get into a safe space or a safe place? All right, and so one of the things that we do as ministry partners, we host something that's called Spiritual and Emotional Wholeness in the Body of Christ. Okay, we host that once a year. But there's something else that we also host, which is called Soul Search Saturday. And Soul Search Saturday is an event that we host where we allow people, or people come and they're allowed to just be themselves, to just release what it is that they have on the inside of them, whether or not, again, and we have to go back to traumatic injuries, to emotional scarring, to physical scarring. Remember on last week we talked about the different types of traumas. There's that acute trauma, something happened one time, they experienced it, and then after that you have the chronic trauma.
Right.
Okay, these are all issues and things that we address as first professionals, and then from a ministry standpoint. And so what would you like to add to that person who's sitting out there and they're saying, well, how do I reach you? How am I going to find Tim and Carlene?
You can find us on Facebook, and we're working on some other things, but right now Facebook is the best way to get in touch with us.
At
Soul Care Warriors Worldwide. So again, we're Timothy and Carlene Ingram, and you've been watching Soul Care 360.